Keith Lee at Clash of Champions this coming Sunday on pay-per-view. What is the latest with Keith Lee and the WWE Championship, Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton? Well, as we've seen the last few weeks on Monday Night Raw, Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, they've been involved in a heated rivalry that goes all the way back to prior to SummerSlam. And this has led to Drew McIntyre having a fractured skull because of Randy Orton's vicious 3 punt kicks to the head, and now Drew McIntyre claymoring Randy Orton 3 times in the head, and Randy Orton now has a head injury. And it's been one of the main feuds of Monday Night Raw. However, it was mentioned on the latest Wrestling Observer Radio by Dave Meltzer that Keith Lee could be added to the WWE Championship match taking place at Clash of Champions. Now, last week on Monday Night Raw, Drew McIntyre put a challenge to Randy Orton for Clash of Champions, changing their previously scheduled singles match into an ambulance match for the WWE Championship, but Dave Meltzer noted that it is a possibility that Keith Lee will be added to the match. Now, McIntyre and Keith Lee went one-on-one last Monday on Raw before getting interrupted and attacked by Retribution, resulting in the match leading to a no contest. We'll speak about that in a second. So tonight on Monday Night Raw, and we will do a preview about this match more in depth later on today, there will be another match between Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee, with the stipulation if Keith Lee wins, he will challenge Drew McIntyre at Clash of Champions for the WWE Championship if Randy Orton is unable to compete. Now, also, it was noted by Dave Meltzer when he was talking about this that there is a possibility of Randy Orton returning tonight on Raw 2, affecting the outcome of the Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre matchup. So it's very important to understand that Dave Meltzer has mentioned there that nothing is set in stone, rather that either event could happen at any moment. So he's certainly covering his bases, shall we say there. Talk about betting on red and black. However, if the match between Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton is an ambulance match, adding Keith Lee, would that make it a triple threat ambulance match unless WWE then changes the stipulation to a triple threat match? If Keith Lee is added to the match, there's a lot of moving parts here. Now, it was also mentioned as well about this whole stipulation of an ambulance match. Now, as I mentioned, last week WWE decided to make the Clash of Champions WWE Championship match between Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton an ambulance match, and by all accounts this was in order to protect Drew McIntyre if he should lose the WWE Championship, once again according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. After Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre both sent each other to the hospital, shall I say hospital or local medical facility, whatever WWE wants to call it, because they call it either or a lot of the time. The decision was made a couple of weeks ago to turn their upcoming Clash of Champions WWE Championship match into an ambulance match, and this is important because the only way that a WWE superstar can win an ambulance match is by throwing their opponent into the back of an ambulance and shutting the door. Now, it's being reported that the stipulation was added so that Drew McIntyre could be protected in defeat, as many of these matches are known to end in kind of fluky finishes, or look, to lose the match you don't have to be pinned. An example of this is Roman Reigns against Braun Strowman at Great Balls of Fire in 2017. What a pay-per-view name. But during that, Roman Reigns actually threw himself essentially into the back of an ambulance after missing a spear on Braun Strowman, and he just shut the door. So Roman Reigns lost, but he kind of didn't lose in that sense, and we've seen people go through the roofs of the ambulance too, and then the doors be shut. There's lots of ways around losing a ambulance match, so it could be, it's been reported rather by Dave Meltzer that this could be a way of protecting Drew McIntyre to lose the WWE Championship, because as it's been mentioned, it's been rumoured that a WWE Championship match between Randy Orton and his rival Edge is rumoured to be in the works for WrestleMania 37. So at some point, if they want to do that, they've got to get the WWE Championship on Randy Orton. Maybe this is the perfect time for it. So there's a lot to break down there. There is a ton to break down there. First of all, Drew McIntyre versus Keith Lee on Monday Night Raw tonight, once again, is a rematch. And how many times in this feud alone, not just in WWE, because if you watch this channel, you know my opinion on WWE and their rematches. It is such a massive crutch for them. And whenever they said it was, I don't know if it was this year or last year, if we're not doing any more rematch clauses, they basically just went, we're not even having a reason to have the rematches anymore. We're just going to book them anyway. Because we see, I would hazard to guess, every episode of Raw or SmackDown, we see at least one rematch. And it might not be from the previous week, it might be from a pay-per-view, or it might be from a couple weeks prior. There is always a rematch on the show. Now, I understand there's only a limited amount of people on the roster, but come on. It's ridiculous. And in this feud alone, involving with these three moving parts with Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, and Keith Lee, how many rematches have we seen in this triangle of a feud here? We've seen Randy Orton versus Keith Lee, 3 times, 4 times? Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee. Last week it was a first time ever inside of a WWE ring for In Your Face Raw. And now this is a rematch because we're going to do it again the next week. And it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Honestly, when they book one Raw, apparently they book about 5 of them just to have a rematch. And it makes you wonder, what do these rewrites do? Does Vince McMahon come in and then rip up the script and go, we'll do what we did last week? It feels like that. Honestly, it feels like that sometimes. Now, when it comes to Keith Lee as well, there's obviously been a lot of discussion about Keith Lee and his debut on the main roster, if it's going well, things that have changed, his entrance music, his ring attire, all of that sort of stuff. Now, what I will say is I've been a big proponent of he's not being buried. Everyone that says he's being buried, it's ridiculous. He isn't being buried. He's mixing it up with Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton. He beat Randy Orton clean on pay-per-view in like 6 minutes. He's not being buried. He's mixing it up with the biggest and the best on the roster, especially on Monday Night Raw. So he's not being buried. Let's forget about that. What I will say is at this point, he is the king of the no contest on Monday nights. He's faced Randy Orton twice on Raw. Twice it was a no contest. He faced Drew McIntyre last week. That was a no contest because of Retribution. And it's looking like, I would predict, that tonight on Raw, when he faces Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton will return. So if Randy Orton returns tonight and attacks Drew McIntyre, that makes 4 no contests. 4, yes, 4 no contests that Keith Lee has been involved in since he debuted on the main roster, and that was about a month ago. He's had 4 no contests on Raw in a month. Now, does that hurt Keith Lee having all these no contests? Not really. Not really. And that's not my problem with it. My problem isn't, Keith Lee's involved in all of these no contests. It hurts him, because I don't think it does. I just think it's really bad booking. I think it's really bad booking. I think it's lazy booking. It's lazy booking and lazy writing. Because every time you do a no contest, it's a way out. It's a way out. You book yourself into a corner, and then you're like, how do we get out of this? Oh, just do a no contest. You've done that 4 times. And whenever you do a no contest, you're not really delivering the match, and you're just giving a no contest to get out of the bad booking. It's a swerve. It's advertising something to your audience and not delivering it. And you can do that once. You can do that once of, okay, we'll do the match. We didn't really want to do the match, but we can do a little bit. You know, you can have maybe 5 minutes, and then something can happen, no contest, we'll get out of it. You can do that once. But not 4 times in about 4 weeks. Because it gets to a point where it's the boy who cried wolf principle, really, isn't it? Every time you advertise a big match for Raw, as a fan watching, you're conditioned at this point to believe it's not going to happen, or you're not even going to see a proper outcome. Support for WrestleNews 365 is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Now, Manscaped, for all of my UK fans out there, Manscaped just launched in the UK. Over here in the United Kingdom, we have gone for years and years and years without using the right tools for the job. But now you can be one of the first men in England to experience their life-changing product. But it's not just limited to all of the great fans over here in the UK. This offer goes worldwide, so all of my friends over in America and around the world that are listening to this offer still does apply for you. You can still use our code. But I've got to tell you a quick story first. Now, there have been so many times, right? I'm a guy. You gotta groom down there, fellas, right? That's the most important thing. You gotta keep yourself trimmed. You gotta keep yourself proper. And a lot of the time, I've been guilty of this, of using the wrong tools for the job. I've had incidences, I'm not afraid to say it, where things have been nicked, snagged, or in fact cut down there because I wasn't being careful enough and using the right equipment. Now that just shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. You don't want to be worrying about cutting yourself down there. Do you know how painful that is? I can tell you, it hurts quite a lot. And I wish and hope to God it never happens to me again, and it won't happen to me ever again because I'm using Manscaped products. That's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team has perfected the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created. Big statement, but it's absolutely true. They have just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0 in the UK. It's also available around the world as well. Their third generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. So those cuts and snags that I was telling you about before are a thing of the past. And let me tell you, when I tell you this is premium, I mean premium. The battery will last up to 90 minutes so you can get a longer, perfect shave. And not only that, you don't want to be cutting yourself and trimming yourself all over the bathroom, getting hair all over the place. That's just disgusting. The lawnmower has a waterproof technology that allows you to groom in the shower, so no more mess. And one of the coolest features, one of my favourite features about the lawnmower is the LED light which illuminates grooming areas for a closer and more precise trimming experience. So you can shave longer, you can shave more precisely, and you can shave in the shower. What more did I need to tell you? They've also upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology, and let's not forget about the charging stand. You can show off your mower loud and proud because this intelligently designed stand is a convenient charging dock powered by USB. So, if you are listening to me speak right now, I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. Let's get that bush to tush clean, and you can get 20% off and free shipping. Yeah, you heard me right there. 20% off and free shipping. All you have to do is use the code 365wrestle at manscaped.com. Make your testes their besties. That's 20% off and free shipping. Not only are you getting 20% off, you're getting free shipping as well with the code 365wrestle at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code 365wrestle. Your balls will thank you. So when you advertise it on social media of Keith Lee is facing Drew McIntyre once again on Raw tonight, my response as a fan is, no he isn't. No he isn't. And because you know it's going to end in a no contest, and if you know that it's going to be a swerve, or you know they're not going to deliver on it again, what does a casual fan think? I bet a casual fan doesn't watch because he goes, I'm not going to see Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre. Or I will maybe for 5 minutes, but I'm not going to see a proper match. I'm not going to see a 15, 20-minute match with either guy defeating the other guy clean, or at least having a finish. So they don't watch. And then they wonder why the ratings continue to dip. Just because you advertise a big match isn't enough. The idea is like back in the day, all we've got to do is get him in the building. And it doesn't matter what you deliver. Yes, it does. It's the principle of you open a restaurant and you get sold out in your restaurant the first night, but all the food's horrible and everyone gets food poisoning. You don't then brag and say, well, we sold out the first night, but then you go, well, but no one's going to come back because they've all been sat on the loo for 5 hours. That's how the idea works of all these swerves, because eventually you don't believe you're going to see it. And if it's a no contest tonight, again, it's the fourth no contest in about 4 weeks. And it's ridiculous. That is so lazy as a writer and as a booker to do that. We'll get out of it with a no contest. What, every week? Can I get out of this show with a no contest? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So that's one thing. And you know my opinion on this whole Randy Orton punt and Claymore thing. Randy Orton was off of TV last week. Drew McIntyre was off of TV for 1 week. So Orton, I think, will return tonight because nobody sells anything anymore. The Randy Orton punt kick, which we wanted to see and return for so long, is absolutely dead at this point. The punt kick took out everyone. Everyone, really. Edge, Christian, Big Show, Ric Flair, whoever. It took out 1 million people. I didn't take out Shawn Michaels. He's back on his feet in 5 seconds and running NXT UK. But the point being is that the punt was a way to write people off TV, and they had Randy Orton kicking everyone in the head because that was the way to write them off of TV and make Randy Orton look like a monster. Now, it's one thing for Randy Orton to kick Drew McIntyre in the head and then Drew McIntyre's back up later that night. That's one thing, and I was like, that's ridiculous. The punt is dead. To do it 3 times, and then Randy Orton, and then Drew McIntyre rather come back a week later, driving an ambulance. I don't know what he was doing with an ambulance for 2 weeks. Are we meant to believe he was in hospital for 2 weeks? Because that's not true. So are we meant to believe that when he left the hospital 2 weeks ago, he just drove around an ambulance? I mean, it's little things like with logic there that just make no sense when it comes to any of this. But so Drew McIntyre's back, and he's got a fractured jaw, and they're still going on that he's got a fractured jaw. And I must say, Drew McIntyre spoke very, very, very well last week for someone who has a fractured jaw. Very, very well. And last week, or 2 weeks ago, they go, you're not cleared, you got a fractured jaw. Apparently that fractured jaw healed up in about a week, because he was cleared to face Keith Lee last week. I mean, Come on, is nobody asking these questions? Is nobody asking these questions when they do this of, what about the punt kick? Really? A fractured jaw and he's off TV for a week? And I know what their response is. Their response is, wow, it just makes Drew McIntyre look strong. No, it doesn't. It makes you look like an idiot. Because everyone in the audience goes, wait a minute, what? It's any major film, and they do it all the time with Marvel films, when they go, that's a plot hole, that doesn't make sense, whether it's the timeline, whether it's this, whether it's that, people talk about it for months because it doesn't make sense, and it takes you out of it. It's the same with this. The logic here just takes you out of it. It's stupid, it's silly. And I'm sure Randy Orton will come back tonight, and they'll say, because they're saying as well, if Randy Orton isn't cleared to compete, but I bet he'll be back tonight, miraculous recovery once again. Everyone's been drinking that John Cena recovery juice. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely, there's no logic. There is no logic. So will Keith Lee be added to the match like Dave Meltzer said? I say no, because I just don't see the purpose of him being added to the match at this point. I agree with what Dave Meltzer says in the sense that I think making the match an ambulance match gives you an out for protecting Drew McIntyre. And to me, it looks like the aim here is to get the bout off Drew without pinning him and keeping him strong. And I think an ambulance match facilitates that. They want to do the Randy Orton Edge title match when Edge returns. Why? I don't know. I don't think the Edge Randy Orton feud needs the WWE Championship at all. It really doesn't. Now, that's not to say that Randy Orton isn't deserving of being WWE Champion, because I think Randy Orton is very deserving of being WWE Champion, because if you look at 2020 as a whole, Randy Orton has been the MVP of WWE this year. He really has. He's the best heel in the business right now. He's doing the best work, his best work in 10 years. I would say, since that heel run in sort of 2008, 2009, so over 10 years. And I think if you line up anyone on the roster this year, consistently nobody has been better than Randy Orton in WWE in 2020. Even in all of the circumstances, Randy Orton for me has been the guy. So should he be WWE Champion? Absolutely. Absolutely, he's deserving of that. But Randy Orton versus Edge 3 doesn't need the WWE Championship. It's a feud that just doesn't need it. They're two big enough names. They don't need the title to sell it. And the only thing that I can think of as to why they would want Randy Orton to be WWE Champion for that match is because the way that you look at this feud between him and Edge, the feud was kind of booked backwards. The first match was a last man standing match at WrestleMania 36. Usually that's the opposite. That's the blow-off match. So the first match was a last man standing match. The next match technically was a singles match, the greatest wrestling match ever. So it's kind of gone backwards. You've had the blow-off match first and the normal singles match. So maybe they feel that they need sort of extra stakes for that final match in the trilogy. Maybe that's the rationale there. But going back to the Drew McIntyre Randy Orton match at Clash of Champions, the ambulance match allows you, or it allows you, if you wanted to get the title off of Drew McIntyre and not have Randy Orton pin him. Ultimately, I think that's what they want. If we have Randy Orton win here, Drew McIntyre isn't getting pinned clean in the middle of the ring with the RKO, because they want to protect Drew, because I think the title will eventually come back to him. It will. There's no doubt about it. He's done very, very well as WWE Champion. So here's what I think. I think Randy Orton returns tonight on Raw. I think he gets involved in the McIntyre-Lee match, which means no contest Lee strikes again. Then I think we have Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton at Clash of Champions in an ambulance match. I think during the match, Drew McIntyre has the match won at Clash of Champions. Then I think Keith Lee attacks his longtime friend and training partner, Drew McIntyre. I think Randy Orton wins the match and the title, sort of slithers to the title as the Viper would. And then you have Drew McIntyre have his next feud against Keith Lee, but he's protected in the process. Randy Orton didn't defeat him. It was a heel turn by Keith Lee. Keith Lee turned his back on him, and it wasn't really Drew McIntyre's fault. The odds were against him. He got screwed. You protect Drew McIntyre, and you get the title on Randy Orton. That fits both purposes that WWE is looking to do here. Now, you can then do Randy Orton versus Keith Lee at Hell in a Cell in October. Of course, Keith Lee owns a victory over Randy Orton. So you can even do the rationale of Keith Lee going, I know I can beat Randy Orton, so if I make him WWE Champion, that's a step closer to me becoming WWE Champion. They could do that. Or, of course, they could just do a triple threat match at Hell in a Cell in October. But I think these three are going to be quite interchangeable when it comes to the WWE Championship feud over the next couple of months. And you've got to remember when people will say, well, why would Keith Lee turn on Drew McIntyre? Last week on Raw, Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre were beating the hell out of each other backstage several times. And every time Keith Lee has had a match against Randy Orton, except at Payback, when Drew McIntyre was on the shelf, driving around in his ambulance somewhere, Keith Lee won the match. And any other time that he's faced Randy Orton on Raw, Drew McIntyre has got involved. No contest, Lee strikes again. So maybe tonight on Raw, Randy Orton gets involved and Keith Lee loses it. I'm sick of people getting involved in my matches thinking that that's okay, that I can just be walked over. And he just snaps. He snaps. So I think we get the ambulance match between Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton at Clash of Champions, but I do think Keith Lee will be factored in somehow. I just don't think he'll be officially part of the match, but I think we might see a Keith Lee running of sorts, and that might affect the outcome of the match. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts? Do you think Keith Lee will be added to the match at Clash of Champions? Who do you think will win the match between Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre if the match happens in an ambulance match at Clash of Champions? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys on this channel. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button as well. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.